Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's episode is about a Mueller type clarinet, not Penzo Mueller, but the German Mueller who made the keywork type back in the 1800s. This was an email submission of someone asking for help identifying their clarinet. So now we'll try to figure out what it is. At first, when I see these type of clarinets, these vintage type like Albert ones, I always clump them together as an Albert clarinet for some reason. I just throw them all in as an Albert. Of course, I know there's the Mueller, there's Oler, and there's all the mishmash of keywork variations during the evolution of the clarinet. But this one was really interesting, and I had to dig deep into remembering what things were when it came to keywork. We'll be looking at a couple websites here, including Wikipedia, so you can always have access to it to read more about it. But on to the pictures. So this was the first picture. Of course, this is the bell. If you look at the bell ring, it's quite enormous. As a matter of fact, it looks like it was added on or it replaced an existing bell ring, a normal bell ring. Take a look at the wood also. It's African Blackwood. That comes important when we think about this a little bit later on. And look at the ring on the bell. It's a metal band type, nickel silver type. Here's the second picture. Yes, quite interesting. If you look, of course, you got three of the main fingers open holes, and you got one key there, and the second is an open hole for your finger to cover. That's for your pinky. That hole's bigger than the other three tone holes there. I hope you have a big pinky trying to close that tone hole. It's kind of funny. Next, we see the lever action here, the two keys for the left hand pinky. Notice how they're more modern design. They have a slotted barrel guide on the left hand side. And it looks kind of like modern keywork in a way, the way the key rods are to the heads there, posts. And the thumb rest kind of looks somewhat modern too, off to the side. Next, we take a look at the upper joint. The C sharp, G sharp key is there. Three open tone holes, one trill key with a slotted barrel type keywork there. And of course, your two throat keys, both parallel. Usually looks like nice design of the metal. Looks like it's kind of forged, which is interesting. There's no maker name on it, as you can see. And there's the register key. This has a wood mouthpiece with a wood mouthpiece cover. Interesting. Barrel with nickel silver rings. Wood mouthpiece. They're interesting. Wood mouthpieces are nice if you get a good one. The wood has to be sealed, otherwise it absorbs water and expands, and the table starts warping, the rails start warping, the whole thing starts warping. You start squeaking like crazy. Here's the bottom of the clarinet. The gigantic bell ring on the bottom. This is the days when you did not have a clarinet peg. So we see this clarinet now. What is it? Let's take a look at a couple websites so we can see how this design is. Because at first you always think it's an Albert clarinet. At least I do. So I'm just going to jump right to this. I have no idea how to pronounce German. So the Ivan Mueller clarinet, which has the same number of keys, approximately. This one, of course, is made of boxwood or pear or some type back then. It has ivory rings, as you see. Copper type keywork. So this is a Ivan Mueller type clarinet. Ivan Mueller basically came from the German area, the Revel area, in strong Baltic German community of a government of Estonia, part of the Russian Empire. I'm learning too sometimes, right? Chamber music, St. Petersburg, before he was 20. That's good. I'm not sure the lifespan of people back then. I think it was in the 30s, mid 30s, maybe 40. He was constantly trying to improve new types of keywork. That's good. Instead of at that time, the standard used a flat brass plates covered in soft leather to cover the tone holes. That's correct. I've actually refurbished some like that. And I have leather around here. You just kind of cut it, make it fit, and it covers the tone hole. You have to make sure that it's flat to the tone hole with the thickness of leather. But of course, if they're not sealed properly, they leak air, as it says here. And what I didn't understand was that his solution was a stuffed pad, originally made of kid leather stuffed with felt. Does that sound familiar? Looks like the modern pad is being born back then. Of course, he had these pads would bulge. When you get water penetration through leather and it hits the felt, the leather basically bulges. And if it bulges, of course, wrong, which is most of the time, you'll get an air leak. And this happens with a lot of old pads too. If you have old pads like 10 years old, whether they're fish skin or leather, they'll absorb water, especially if there's cut in it. They'll absorb water. They'll expand a little bit, and you'll get an air leak, usually 10 minutes into playing. And then if you don't play for a bit, it dries up a little bit, plays fine, then it absorbs water, you get an air leak again. So what we had here was these pads would bulge such that in a combination with countersunk tone holes would close the key work sufficiently tight to permit the use of increased number of keys, making the clarinet omnitonique possible. So interesting. So he's advancing the functionality of key work and tone holes and the pads. Lovely, huh? If you notice, he went to round key cups, actually concave also. In addition to the fingering system change in the felt pads, he is the inventor of the metal ligature. We'll have a quiz at the end of this so that we all remember this. The metal ligature. Of course, now we use all types of materials. Yeah, that's a Van Doren over here and a Rovner over there. That replaced twine, string, and wire. Wow. That's kind of amazing just reading that there. And that was in the 1800s. He went on to work in Dresden, Berlin, Leipzig, where he specialized in the basset horn. Oh, all those clarinet players, we know what the basset horn is, right? We try to strive to buy one that costs way too much money. We use it for, what, 3 pieces? So in 1809, Mueller performed the great acclaim on a clarinet made to his own specification that same year. And he moved to Paris, gained the support of a wealthy patron, which is always how people make money back then. And as musicians, you need someone with money. And he started mass producing clarinets. Wow. He presented his 13-key clarinet with airtight pads to the Paris Conservatory, but they weren't impressed. My high school sax teacher actually went there to the Paris Conservatory. That's where she got her degree from. Nevertheless, Mueller's new clarinet was with fully chromatic range, became popular and became the standard clarinet for much of the 19th century. Amazing what you learn in Wikipedia, isn't it? I have books here that I used to read in the 70s and 80s, but I haven't read since, maybe the 90s too. All about the history of the clarinet, history about everything about the clarinet, harmonics, you name it. I don't remember anything. We'll have to have reading time one of these days and thumb through these books like, oh, this is interesting. And it was further developed into the Oehler system. Whoops. And we know what that is. The other German system, the prevalent system in Germany today. There's a name we all know, which I can't ever pronounce properly. Klaus, basically, principal clarinet at the Theater Italien in Paris. So he basically helped develop the modern Oehler system, helped create the modern pad system, and also the modern pad cup systems. That is some interesting information to learn about Mueller. I have some other information here, reform Bohm system clarinets. You can look at different keyworks here. You know, here's an Ivan Mueller clarinet here, comparison to other ones. You may recall I have 2 other videos here, an early Albert and a later Albert with Bohm keywork on it for the pinky keys. Quite interesting. I only have one of them here right now. The other one kind of went back. But very interesting clarinets. They're very fun to play. I don't remember Albert keywork. You just kind of play it by ear. But yeah, this thing works good. The interesting thing though about the pictures, as I mentioned, is jumping back to them, jumping back to the pictures, this is made of African Blackwood and nickel silver keys. And of course, the rods and the posts all look more like modern type. The story behind this was it was from I think it's a great grandfather. They found it and they're wondering about its. They couldn't find any information about it on the internet, so they're trying to find out more about it and can't. Oh, look at this! Right underneath this right pinky key, look at the tone hole here being raised for the other hole, the one that is so much larger than your pinky. Very interesting. And it was and his grandfather came from Poland with this clarinet. Jumping back to the web pages here. So jumping back to these web pages here, I was curious, when was African Blackwood first started being used in any musical instrument? And I came across um, bagpipes. It's interesting. Look at the guy with bagpipes. Look at all those African Blackwood shafts here. In one of my videos where I show how to make barrels, you take pieces of wood and you shave it down in a lathe, and you initially then also you drill a bore through it, and that's what all this stuff is here. No squares, no, they're all cut. Amazing, if you ask me. Well, at least from a woodworker, it's amazing. Anyways, African Blackwood, looking at here, started being supplied in the course of the 20th century here, and mostly black pipes. In 1900, African Blackwood appeared in the Henderson price list, along with cocos wood and ebony, another woods used clarinet. Pipes made from Blackwood apparently were considered an upgrade because there was a 10 shilling extra charge for them. What else do we have here? R.G. Laurie catalog, 1920s and 30s, say the Laurie sold a range of 15 different bagpipes made from ebony or cocos wood, extra for African Blackwood. Gaboon ebony. The timbers are selected with the utmost care. And African Blackwood is recommended for abroad as best suited to standing climatic changes. And yet clarinets crack. Well, clarinets crack because the inner temperature expands the inner layers of the wood, and the outer layers of wood are too cold. At some point, the pressure expanding exceeds the ability of the outer layers holding, and just goes bing and cracks. I actually ran some tests here before. I put some old junk uh, upper joints, whatever, in the freezer for a little bit just to cool it like it was wintertime. And then I used a hobby heater to blow hot air through the bore. And yeah, just bing. It was quite interesting. I should do that again as a test for a video to show everybody. Anyways, bagpipe makers of the time shunned African Blackwood and continued producing until the 1950s. The most part, the 1920s marked transition to African Blackwood, and it remains by far the dominant wood of choice today. And here, creation of modern woodwind, it really doesn't talk about the wood so much when they started using it. I was looking for that for clarinets, but I'm afraid I'll probably have to go through looking at various clarinets from a museum and seeing when there's a transition to African Blackwood. And we may do that for some other video. Anyways, we have history here. I'm a photographer, so you'll see these lights and other stuff here. Anyways, history here about wood. It talks about clarinets being made of, in the early days, of bone or elder wood up to the Middle Ages, the 17th century. And usually made of boxwood, plum, pear tree. Rarely were they made of ivory because ivory is so hard. Mostly boxwood. Though makers experiment with silver and brass as well. Clarinets are made out of cocos wood, a tropical wood found mostly in Jamaica. French makers started using ebony as a heavy dark wood from Africa. but they, out of all the woods they start, prefer African Blackwood, which is similar to ebony but less heavy and brittle. That's interesting. I have various ebonies here and various African Blackwoods here, and I've actually never compared the weight of them, but I know they're not exact in weight either. I should take the volume and the weight and determine the density from that. The reason we went this route is that this clarinet would technically be a Mueller clarinet, but it's made for African Blackwood, has nickel silver keys, and has nickel silver rings to help support and strengthen the joints. I think, and I told the person who sent this to me, is I think this was basically a duplicate, a copy, maybe made in the either late 1800s or early 1900s, and his grandfather bought a vintage duplicate instrument used with modern keywork, modern materials, modern woods. That's kind of what I'm guessing, but I'm just guessing. If we had the, more background information, we'll be able to know more. But of course, that information is now gone. But a very interesting clarinet. We'll go right back to it again. Here's the Clarinet Bell. And I want you to look at the bottom of the bell. It looks like a regular ring was there before this ginormous ring was put on top of it. It still has that lip there for just a regular ring. I think that's probably like a regular clarinet bell. I would love to have this in my hands to see the dimensions of that bell and everything else. Lower joint. You got two keys there. The one pinky key and the one pinky hole, which is gigantic, and the three open tone holes. Notice the nickel silver rings on the end of the joint. Upper joint, C sharp, G sharp key, one trill key, two throat keys, three open tone holes. And I wish there was a back picture so I could see if there actually was a thumb hole for that too. I assume. Well, anyways, what I told the client was that I think it's an early 1900s replica of an early Mueller clarinet, because it was made of African Blackwood, had the nickel silver rings, nickel silver keys. Pad cups looked like they were manufactured not by hand hammering, but more industrial type. It just seemed more like a replica than an actual Mueller clarinet. Plus, being African Blackwood, it just didn't fit all the way around. But who knows? No one really knows. It's a great clarinet to have, though. I would love to have it up on the wall just to show people. But he has his value too, and I have absolutely no idea. If there's any experts out there about these clarinets, they have an idea of its value or know when this one was made, or even where it was made, or who could have made it. Trouble is in Germany, there was a town, Mönchengladbach, and I can't remember its name properly, but there's hundreds of individual manufacturers of clarinets and other instruments too. So knowing who exactly made it, who knows? Could have been. It may not even been German either. It may have been, if it's a replica, it could have been made in Poland, where the gentleman came from. Who knows? But if anyone has any idea, put it down in the comments below. I want to thank you for listening to my ramblings again. This one was a long one today. Any questions or comments, put it down below. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, like, subscribe, and share. You gotta love the knowledge, gotta love life, and gotta love clarinets. See you next time.